Greetings, Earthlings. Joel here from Earth Tools. I've got a little bit of a cold, so sorry about my voice. So we're going to talk today about an ACME engine recoil starter. This is off of an AL or ALN series ACME engine. And one of the things you typically have these things start to fail on is that they just get, the tongue hangs out, as we say. Doesn't go all the way back in. And you get this kind of horrible, dry, raspy sound. Well, that needs lubrication. And the way the ACME recoils are made, they're actually pretty easy to lubricate. I've already removed this recoil starter from the engine using the 6 nuts that held it on there, of course. Anyway, when you start looking at the pulley here, you've got the place where the rope or cable knot is, or ferrule is kind of goes through. That's where the cable goes up into the rope drum. But directly across from that, 180 degrees across from it, is a little access hole where you can actually see where the spring is hooked into the bottom side of the pulley. That's also a great point to put lube in there because that gets lube down to lubricate the spring itself. And if you hold the thing up at the right angle, you can get that lube to run back along the axle shaft to lube the axle shaft a little bit. I'm going to take this spray lube. Shape is penetrate green is what I'm using here, but you can use any good spray lube. I'm going to spray a little bit in here. I'm going to crank this thing. I'm going to hold it up sideways while I crank it to get that evenly dispersed around in there. Look, goes all the way back in now. Doesn't make a horrible noise. We'll give it a little more. Couple shots. Alright, that's much better. The next thing that the ACME recoils have a bad habit of doing is that they don't, all 3 of their little jaws sometimes don't come out. You got one jaw, 2 jaw, where's the 3rd jaw? Well, it's there, but it's not coming out. And we're going to see why. I've got a snap ring pliers here. I'll take off the little snap ring so we can get this cover off. Put that in there. Take that off. That's the wavy washer, as we call it. It's like a bent spring steel washer that puts tension against the top of this thing to give it the drag necessary to kick those little dogs out of there. Well, here's the problem. The slots that are made in this thing for these arms to come out, one of the slots is huge because there's a piece of steel that actually was on here originally. It's gone. So this needs to be replaced. So this retainer, we call it, it's the kind of a jaw retainer for these things, has simply a part of it has split out. So this needs to be replaced, and then you'll have 3 equally spaced, equally sized openings, and it'll take all 3 of those jaws out. Now you can also see that this thing is filthy, so it'd be a good idea to take this apart and actually clean things up a little bit if you want it to last longer. Make this phone go away here. There is a bushing down in here. This is a plastic bushing that is actually a wear surface for the pulley rotating on the axle. The pulley, or the bushing, has a little kind of a nib made onto it there that fits down into a slot. So they can't just be shoved in there any old place. It needs to go down to where it fits into that slot. Otherwise it won't go down all the way. There's also one of these bushings in the bottom side of this pulley. So if you ever take this pulley off, that pulley has to go back in its proper slot as well. This is not broken. They're like this from the factory. A lot of people take these things out and say, oh, my bushing is split. They order a new bushing. You get a shock because the new bushing looks just like this. So there's nothing wrong with that. The bushings hardly ever wear out. But yeah, you can take these parts off and clean as needed. There are little retaining springs, little baby springs right there, holding each paw in place. They call these things pawl, P-A-W-L. And you can take all that, clean it up, and then put them all back together. If you remove the paws and do some cleaning around here, you just have to make sure that you get them back in the right orientation. You might want to take a picture of it before you take it apart, because you'll notice that there are holes for these paws to slide in on this side, and look, there's another one on this side. These could go back in either of 2 directions. Now that one's got so much dirt in it, it won't go down in the hole, but If it was cleaned out properly, it would go in either way. So which way do you put it? Well, you put it the way that it originally was. The thing is, the ACME engines had a clockwise and counterclockwise rotation available on the engines. So they made the recoil starter work to actually go together either way. So every engine that was ever sold in North America has one rotation, so you're always going to have the same rotation. So that's it. If you needed to replace the spring on the bottom, then you would pull this pulley up out of there and replace the spring and put everything back down together. The thing is, when you're putting it back on, two things. Number one, you got to make sure the end of the spring hooks into the bottom of the pulley. That's why that hole is there, so you can align it when you're putting it back down. So that's easy to see. The thing that you can't see is that when you've got this bushing on the bottom, which is typically sitting down in the housing on the axle, and you're trying to put this pulley down on there, well, you can't see this little nub. So you just orient that 180 degrees out from where the spring hook in is, and usually you can wiggle it around and get it down on there. Some people will get very frustrated and like, I can't get this thing to go down all the way, and they'll hit it with a hammer until it goes down and just smash that nub flat. Then the thing won't work because it's all jammed together and there's like break out all the time. If you take a little patience and get these things together properly, everything works fine. Now the other thing that's here, yes, there is a little plastic washer. That's important, and that's right where it goes. It's in the right location. Now, when you put this stuff back together on the top here, we'll just kind of wipe this off, and I'm going to put this spring back in that I had pulled out of here earlier. Normally, I would clean all this stuff up first, but I don't have time to do that because we're making a video. So let's get this dropped back in here. Okay, so let's just pretend this is all cleaned up. We're going to put it back together. We do not want to get a lot of lube right up here where the top of the bushing is. Where the lube should be is down in here where the bushing is going to rotate against the axle. If we get a lot of lube up here on the friction surfaces between, particularly on the top end of this thing, it's going to be a problem because this friction washer pushes on the top of this cup and has the snap ring pushing down on it. So there's actually friction being generated between the snap ring and the top of this cup. That's to keep the cup from turning quite as easily. It basically has to have some drag so that when you start rotating the pulley, by pulling the rope, the cup kind of lags behind and it twists the pawls out like that. If everything's too easy to turn, if there's a bunch of lube on top of this thing where all these components are, if you lube that up real well, that is, you'll never see me take the lube and just spray it around the top of here. You don't want to do that, especially after you get all this back together. The lube should be down inside, and the best way to get it to there is through that access hole. Let it come from the inside out. But if you really get liberal with the lube that you're spraying down in there, it could ooze all the way back out and actually get on this friction surface on top. That's a no-no. If you do that, you will certainly notice that the pawls will not jump out. You'll have to crank it like really fast to get them to come out, and you don't want to do that. They should come out real easy. Anyway, this plastic friction washer goes in the bottom. We'll get our bushing back down in here. Line up the little slot. Drop this back into place. Now, of course, this needs to be replaced. I didn't go to the trouble of getting a new one out of stock, but normally that would get replaced, and then all three of these dogs would jump out. Then I'm going to get my friction washer back on the top and put the snap ring back in place. And make sure the snap ring is securely down in the groove. Down there. There we go. It snaps in all the way around. Now, see, two of those jump out fine, but the one isn't because, of course, we didn't replace this. But that's doing what it's supposed to otherwise. That's it. You're a certified expert on ACME reels. Thanks for watching.